She believed she had found only silence and dust, until she heard the muffled sound that would change her life forever. Among the dunes, a wild man, buried alive, black eyes fixed on her with hatred and desire, awaited his last breath, until her delicate hands tore through the sand and freed him. She didn't know in that moment that she had broken a forbidden ritual, nor that this man marked by the blood of gods would become her greatest danger and her greatest temptation. But when he returned, bringing the heat of 1,000 bonfires and the promise of forbidden love, she understood there was no escape. And what he wanted from her wasn't just gratitude, it was everything. If intense and unexpected love stories like this touch your heart, subscribe to this channel and comment what you thought. Every day we post new plots that move and surprise. Discover now the romance that no one dared to live. The heat of the Texas plains burned the skin like hot iron, and Emily Richardson walked through her father's ranch as if treading on foreign soil. Daughter of one of the largest soybean producers in the state, she had been raised between private schools in Austin and study periods in New York, always protected from the harsh reality of the countryside by tinted windows of imported cars and high walls of gated communities. But now, at 26, she was there against her will, forced by her father to spend 3 months supervising the construction of new silos while he recovered from a heart attack. It was only supposed to be a break, a pause before returning to the capital, marrying the son of another rancher her father had chosen for her, and assuming the perfect role of the decorative and submissive wife. But nothing had prepared her for the smell of wet earth after the rain, the song of mockingbirds at dawn, or for the unsettling dreams that began to haunt her from the day she set foot on that property. It all started on a suffocating March afternoon, when she moved away from the main house in search of shade and found a group of rural workers arguing heatedly near the machinery shed. A muffled noise stopped her, a groan of pain, smothered. And then she saw a black man fallen on the ground, his face swollen, blood running from his nose, while 3 other men kicked him without mercy. She knelt down impulsively and, trembling, shouted for them to stop, threatening to call the police if they didn't immediately back away. He was a worker beaten for having dared to question the foreman about delayed wages. But Emily couldn't bear to look at those eyes full of pain and revolt and do nothing. She shooed away the aggressors with the authority of an employer and knelt beside the injured man, tearing her own silk blouse to stop the bleeding. He stared at her for a long time, as if wanting to engrave her face in his memory, his black eyes flashing a strange mixture of gratitude and distrust, before getting up with difficulty and disappearing among the plantations. But that night he invaded her dreams. She dreamed that he came back to thank her, that he pulled her into the darkness of the cane field, and that his calloused hands traveled over her skin until they tore from her not only moans of pleasure, but a piece of her soul. Upon waking, she felt feverish, the sheets stuck to her body because of the sweat, her heart racing with the unconfessable desire that was beginning to sprout within her. Days later, Marcus, because that was his name, returned. He didn't ask for anything, didn't explain anything. He just appeared on the porch of the main house at dusk, cap in hand, and held out to her a small bird carved in wood, saying it was to thank her for saving his life. She tried to protest, to say it wasn't necessary, but she couldn't, not even when he leaned in and let his fingers brush against hers in a gesture that made her tremble from head to toe. The tension between them only increased. In each furtive encounter, he became bolder. He approached her when she visited the plantations, stood a few inches away, his hot breath on her neck as he explained about the harvest, his fingertips lightly running over her shoulders when he helped her down from the pickup truck as if claiming an ancient right. She felt her legs weaken, her heart racing, as if she were dancing on the edge of a precipice. And increasingly, she wanted to throw herself off. Emily discovered that Marcus wasn't just another farmhand. Graduated in agronomy from a public university, he had been working on the farm for 5 years, but had always been treated as cheap labor by the racist foreman who controlled the hiring. He knew every inch of that land better than she did, knew the secrets of the plantation, the cycles of nature, the language of the animals. When he spoke about agriculture, his eyes lit up with a passion she had never seen in any of the playboys from the capital who courted her inheritance. It was on a rainy afternoon that the chemistry between them finally exploded. Emily was trapped in the field office when the storm began. and Marcus appeared drenched to pick up some documents. The electricity had gone out, and they were alone in the dark, the sound of the rain drowning out any noise from the outside world. He approached to grab a folder on the desk, and she felt the heat of his body inches from hers, the smell of wet earth and masculine sweat making her head spin. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered, his voice hoarse, but without moving away. "Neither should you," she replied, turning to face him. The first kiss was hungry, desperate, as if both were dying of thirst. His hands were firm and warm, and his wild kisses made her gasp in a way she had never imagined herself capable of. He pressed her against the desk, his hands tracing her curves over her clothes, and Emily discovered that, deep down, she longed to be touched like this, with this primitive urgency that none of her well-educated suitors had ever shown. But when he began to unbutton her blouse, she backed away, frightened by her own reaction. "I can't," she murmured, though every cell in her body screamed the opposite. He stopped immediately, breathing heavily. "I know," he said, running his hand through his wet hair. "I know I can't touch you. I know you're the boss's daughter and I'm just a worker. I know this is madness." But even knowing it, neither of them could stay away. In the days that followed, Emily found herself making up excuses to visit the plantations, to be near him. Marcus, for his part, always found a reason to appear at the main house, to cross paths with her in the hallways, to let his fingers brush against hers when he delivered reports. Their passion wasn't just forbidden, it was dangerous. On the night they finally surrendered to each other, the plains seemed to burn in flames. Emily had told her father she was going to bed early, but slipped out through the bedroom window and went to meet Marcus in the old tool shed, abandoned for years at the back of the property. He was waiting for her with his shirt open, the muscles of his chest defined by the moonlight coming through the cracks in the wood. "Are you sure?" he asked, his hands trembling when he touched her face. In response, she pressed herself against him, letting him feel how much she wanted him. He undressed her slowly, as if unwrapping a sacred gift, kissing each piece of skin he uncovered. When he finally took her, Emily felt as if she were being awakened from a deep sleep. Each touch, each movement, each moan revealing a part of herself that she didn't even know existed. He loved her as if he would devour her, and Emily discovered that deep down she longed to be devoured. In the weeks that followed, they met in secret whenever possible, in the abandoned house, in the middle of the plantations, by the pond. Each encounter was more intense than the previous one, as if both knew that it couldn't last forever. But Marcus carried secrets. Emily discovered casually, talking to one of the kitchen maids, that he had been imprisoned at 18 for assaulting a police officer who was beating his younger brother during a stop. He spent 2 years in jail, where he learned to fight to survive, before getting an opportunity to study through a social project. The violence he was capable of using to defend her could also be used against her, and this frightened and excited her at the same time. It was on an April dawn that everything fell apart. Emily woke up to the sound of altered voices coming from the ranch courtyard. Through the window, she saw a group of armed men surrounding the house where Marcus lived with other workers. They were gunmen hired by the neighboring rancher, an old rival of her father's, who had discovered about the affair and decided to use it to blackmail the Richardson family. The leader of the group shouted loud enough for her to hear, "Tell old Richardson that we know about the black boy who's been sleeping with his daughter. Either he sells us this land at the price we want, or the story becomes a scandal all over town." Emily felt the world spin. It wasn't just her reputation at stake, but the honor of the entire family, her father's business, the future of the ranch, and above all, Marcus's life, who would certainly be killed if they didn't give in to the blackmail. When she ran down to the courtyard, it was already too late. Marcus had disappeared, leaving only a scribbled note on her desk. "I can't put you in danger anymore. When all this is over, if you still love me, look for me in the city. But now I need to leave." And so, before the note and the silence of dawn, Emily understood that her passion for Marcus would never be just love, but also choice, sacrifice, and struggle against a world that didn't want them together. The 3 days following Marcus's disappearance were the longest in Emily's life. She locked herself in her room, refusing to eat, pretending to be sick to avoid her father's questions, who circled the house like a caged lion. Richard Richardson was not a man of half measures. And Emily knew it was only a matter of time before he discovered the whole truth. But even knowing the danger, she couldn't stop thinking about Marcus, reliving every moment they spent together, every touch, every kiss that now seemed like a distant dream. It was on the morning of the fourth day that her father finally knocked on the bedroom door with more force than necessary. "Emily, we need to talk. Now." She went down the stairs with her heart in her throat, finding her father sitting in the leather armchair in the living room, his face closed, a glass of whiskey in his hand even though it was only 9 in the morning. In his hands, she recognized the small wooden bird that Marcus had carved for her, the one she kept as a treasure in her drawer. "Explain this to me," he said, his voice dangerously calm. Emily felt the world spin. It's just a gift from one of the employees, Dad. It doesn't mean anything. Don't take me for an idiot, girl." Richard stood up, approaching her like a predator. "I know you've been involved with that black man. I know you've been meeting in secret. And I know that this caused the blackmail that almost ruined our family." Her father's words fell like slaps. Emily tried to deny it, but he continued relentlessly. "You think I don't know anything? That I don't have eyes on this property? My own daughter, lowering herself with the rabble, destroying decades of work because of a whim." "It wasn't a whim," Emily exploded, surprised by her own courage. "I love him." The slap came before she could dodge it. Richard's heavy hand left her cheek burning, but it was the pain in his eyes that hurt her the most. "Love?" he growled. "You don't even know what love is, spoiled girl. That man used you, took advantage of your innocence to try to get ahead in life. And you, dumb as a doorknob, fell right for his talk." "That's not true. Marcus never asked me for anything. Never." "Never what? Never touched you, never kissed you, never took you to bed?" Her silence was answer enough. "I raised you to be a respectable lady, to marry a good man, to continue our name. And you threw all that away because of an ex-convict who can barely read." The mention of Marcus's past made Emily shudder. "How do you know about that?" "I know everything about who works on my property. I know he spent 2 years in jail for assault. I know he has a history of violence. I know he is exactly the type of man a woman like you should avoid." Richard returned to the armchair, pouring more whiskey into the glass. "But that doesn't matter anymore. He's gone, and you're going to forget he existed." "I won't forget," Emily whispered, tears running down her face. "I can't. You can, and you will. Because tomorrow you're going back to Austin, and next week you're going to get engaged to Bradley Thompson. The wedding will be in 2 months, and this whole story will just be a bad memory." The forced engagement was like a stab in the chest. Bradley Thompson was the son of another rancher, a man 15 years older than her, known for his coldness and the rumors that he mistreated his employees. It was exactly the kind of arranged marriage she had always known awaited her, but which now seemed impossible to bear. That night, Emily did something she never thought she was capable of doing. She ran away. She waited for her father to fall asleep, took the car, and drove to the city, determined to find Marcus, even if she didn't know where to start. Smithville was a small town, but at night it seemed like a labyrinth of deserted streets and dimly lit bars. It was at the third stop, at a corner bar where country music played loudly and the smell of warm beer permeated the air, that she finally got a clue. The owner of the establishment, a fat, sweaty man, recognized her immediately as the rancher's daughter. But when she asked about Marcus, he hesitated. "Girl, you shouldn't be here. This ain't a place for people like you. Please," she begged, not caring about her pride. "I need to find him. It's important." The man sighed, looking around as if afraid of being overheard. "He was here yesterday. Said he was going to Austin to look for work. But girl, listen to what I'm going to tell you. Forget that man. He's not for you, and you're not for him. This story will only bring misfortune to everyone." But Emily was no longer listening. Austin. At least now she knew where to look. She returned to the ranch at dawn, pretending she had just gone out for a walk, and waited for the right opportunity to act. The opportunity came 3 days later, when her father had to travel to Dallas to resolve issues with the Department of Agriculture. Emily waited for him to leave, packed a small suitcase, and caught the first bus to the capital. She had enough savings to support herself for a few days, and a desperate plan to find Marcus before it was too late. Austin was a different world from the countryside. The tall buildings, the chaotic traffic, the crowd of anonymous people on the streets, all of this should have scared her, but Emily felt strangely free for the first time in her life. She stayed at a cheap hotel near downtown and began her search. It took 2 days visiting agribusiness companies, cooperatives, rural unions, asking for Marcus Johnson. Most people looked at her with suspicion. A well-dressed white woman looking for a black worker didn't seem normal. But Emily persisted, driven by a desperation that grew with each hour. It was at a small agricultural consultancy in the South District that she finally had news of him. The receptionist, a middle-aged black woman, studied her for a long moment before speaking. "You're that girl from the ranch, aren't you? Richard Richardson's daughter?" Emily nodded, her heart racing. "Do you know Marcus?" "I know him. He was here looking for work. Good man, intelligent, competent. But when I found out he came from that ranch, when I discovered what had happened..." The woman shook her head. "Girl, do you know the damage you've done to his life?" "What damage? I don't understand." "Marcus lost more than his job when he left the ranch. He lost his reference, his reputation, people's trust. Nobody wants to hire a man who got involved with the boss's daughter. They say he took advantage of the situation, that he's not trustworthy." The woman came closer, lowering her voice. "He's living in a boarding house in the North District, working as a construction helper. An educated man, working as a laborer because of you." The revelation was like a punch to the stomach. Emily had never thought about the consequences that her love could have on Marcus's life. In her privileged world, problems always had easy solutions. There was always someone to clean up the mess. But for him, a black and poor man, the consequences of getting involved with her were devastating. The boarding house where Marcus lived was on a narrow, noisy street, surrounded by auto repair shops and small businesses. Emily climbed the creaking stairs to the 3rd floor, her heart beating so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. She knocked on the door of room 304 with trembling knuckles. When the door opened, Emily had to hold onto the door frame to keep from falling. Marcus was unrecognizable, thin with deep dark circles under his eyes, his hands calloused and injured from heavy work. When he saw her, his eyes filled with a mixture of joy and despair that broke her heart. "Emily, what are you doing here? I came looking for you. I needed to see you, needed to explain." He looked to the sides, as if afraid someone would see them together, and pulled her into the room. The space was tiny, with just a twin bed, an old table, and a particle board wardrobe. Through the window, only the wall of the neighboring building could be seen. "You shouldn't be here," he said, running his hands through his hair. "It's not safe. If they find out you came after me..." "I don't care about that. I can't stand being away from you anymore." Emily approached, but he backed away, as if her touch burned. "You need to understand that it's over between us. You need to go back to your life. Marry who your father chose. Forget I exist." "I can't. I love you." "Love isn't enough," Marcus exploded, his voice laden with a pain she had never seen. "You think love solves everything? That love pays the bills? That love gives me work? That love erases the color of my skin and my origin? I lost everything because of you, Emily. Everything." His words hurt more than any slap. "I didn't know. I didn't think." "Exactly. You didn't think. Because you never had to think. You live in a world where problems are solved with money, where people do what you want because you're rich and white. But I don't live in that world. In my world, the consequences are real." Emily felt the tears streaming down, but she didn't care. "Then teach me to live in your world." "I'll leave everything. Leave the ranch, leave my family, leave everything to be with you." "You don't understand." Marcus sat on the bed, his head in his hands. "You would last a week living like I live. A week working sun up to sun down, earning minimum wage, suffering prejudice, being treated like garbage. And then you'd run back to your father's protection. I wouldn't." "Yes, you would. Because you're good, Emily. You're sweet, generous, brave. But you're not strong enough for this, and I'm not selfish enough to let you try." Emily knelt in front of him, holding his face in her hands. "Then let's leave. Let's go somewhere else, where no one knows us, where we can start over." For a moment, she saw a spark of hope in his eyes. But then Marcus moved away, standing up abruptly. "With what money? With what documents? You think it's that easy? That we can just disappear? I have money. I don't want your money." His voice was ice cold now. "I'm not a gigolo, Emily. I won't live at a woman's expense." The silence that followed was deafening. Emily felt as if she had been strangled, unable to breathe, unable to think. Everything she offered was rejected. Everything she felt was thrown back in her face. "So this is how it ends," she whispered. "You simply give up on us?" Marcus turned his back to her, looking out the window. "There never was an us, Emily. There was just a fantasy. A beautiful fantasy, but an impossible one." Emily stood up, her legs trembling, and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned one last time. "I don't believe you. I saw how you looked at me, felt how you touched me. That wasn't fantasy. And you can try to convince me otherwise, you can try to push me away. But I know you love me as much as I love you." She left before he could respond, running down the stairs, tears blinding her vision. On the street, she leaned against a lamppost and cried like she had never cried in her life, feeling as if her heart had been torn from her chest. But Emily Richardson was not a woman who gave up easily. And if Marcus thought she was too weak to fight for them, he was about to discover how wrong he was. Emily spent the night walking the streets of Austin, her mind buzzing with a determination she didn't know she possessed. Marcus's words echoed in her head like a challenge. "You're not strong enough for this." Maybe he was right. Maybe she really was just a spoiled princess who didn't know the real world. But if that's what he thought, he was about to discover how wrong he was. By dawn, she had already made the most radical decision of her life. She wouldn't return to the ranch as an obedient daughter. She wouldn't marry Bradley Thompson. She wouldn't be the little doll everyone expected her to be anymore. If Marcus thought she was too weak to live in his world, she would prove him wrong. The first thing she did was look for a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but Angela Washington, a black woman known for defending rural workers against abusive ranchers. The office was in an old building downtown, and when Emily explained what she wanted, the lawyer studied her with a mixture of surprise and skepticism. "You want to renounce your inheritance? Give up everything your father built?" "I do, and I want more than that." Emily leaned forward, her eyes shining with an iron determination. "I want to sue my father for slave labor, for mistreating employees, for all the illegalities he commits on the ranch. I know where the documents are that prove everything." Angela Washington leaned back in her chair, impressed. "Girl, do you know what you're doing? You're talking about destroying your own family. My family is already destroyed. I'm just exposing the truth." Emily took a thick envelope from her purse. "Here are copies of falsified work contracts, proof of late payments, records of covered-up accidents. I photographed everything before coming here." The lawyer examined the documents, and Emily saw her eyes widen. "This is pure dynamite. If this goes public, your father will go to jail." "Good. Maybe then he'll learn that he can't treat people like garbage." Emily stood up, smoothing her skirt. "How long do you need to prepare everything?" "Emily, think carefully. Once this starts, there's no turning back. You'll become a social pariah. You'll lose everything. You'll be rejected by your own class. Are you sure you're prepared for that?" "I'm more prepared than ever." While the lawyer prepared the lawsuits, Emily put the second part of her plan into action. She sought out local newspapers, radio stations, news websites. She wanted the story to be public, for everyone to know exactly what kind of man Richard Richardson was. The first journalist who received her was Mark Oliveira, a middle-aged man known for his investigative reporting. When Emily appeared at the newspaper office, he almost couldn't believe that the daughter of one of the most powerful ranchers in the state was there to denounce her own father. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked, turning on the recorder. "Once this story is published, there's no going back. I want you to publish everything. I want people to know what kind of man my father is, what he did to the employees, how he treats those who work for him." The interview lasted 3 hours. Emily told everything. The beatings, the late wages, the inhumane working conditions, the blackmail that nearly destroyed Marcus's life. When she finished, she felt emptied, but also liberated. "And what about your relationship with this worker?" Mark asked. "Will that also be in the article?" "It will. I'm not ashamed of loving Marcus. I'm ashamed that it took me so long to have the courage to fight for him." The article was published 3 days later, occupying the front page of the newspaper with the headline, "Rancher's Daughter Denounces Father for Slave Labor and Mistreatment." The impact was immediate and devastating. Within hours, the story was in every media outlet in the state, and Emily became simultaneously heroine and villain, depending on who was opining. Richard Richardson found out about his daughter's betrayal through a desperate phone call from the family lawyer. When he read the article, he felt as if he had been shot in the chest. It wasn't just the public exposure that hurt him, but the fact that his own daughter, the girl he had raised and protected, had turned against him. Emily's phone rang shortly after noon. It was her father. "You ungrateful bitch," he growled as soon as she answered. "You have no idea what you've just done." "I did exactly what I should have done a long time ago," Emily replied, her voice firm. "Expose the truth about the man you are. I am your father. I raised you, educated you, gave you everything. You gave me everything, except the chance to be myself, except the chance to choose my own life. Your life? You threw your life in the trash because of an ex-convict who doesn't even care about you. Marcus does care about me. He rejected me because he knew I wasn't strong enough to face the consequences of being with him. But now I am." Emily took a deep breath. "I renounced my inheritance, Dad. I don't want anything that comes from your dirty money anymore." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When Richard spoke again, his voice was broken. You can't do this. You're all I have. You lost me the moment you decided I was your property instead of your daughter." Emily hung up the phone and allowed herself to cry for the first time since she made the decision. It wasn't just the end of the relationship with her father, but the end of an entire life, of an identity she had carried for 26 years. But the most important reaction was yet to come. Marcus found out about the story through a co-worker who showed him the newspaper during lunch break. When he read the article, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Emily had really done it. She had destroyed her own life to defend the rights of rural workers, to defend him. That night, he appeared at the door of the hotel where she was staying. When Emily opened the door and saw him there, with the crumpled newspaper in his hands and red eyes, she knew everything had been worth it. "Are you crazy?" he asked, entering the room. "Have you completely lost your mind?" "Maybe, but lost it for a good cause." "Good cause? You destroyed your life, destroyed your family. And for what? To prove that I love you. To prove that I'm strong enough to fight for us. To prove that I'm not the spoiled rich girl you think I am." Marcus threw the newspaper on the table and approached her, his hands trembling. "Emily, you don't understand. Now you have nothing. No family, no money, no future. You threw yourself into the same hole where I am." "Exactly. Now we're on the same level. Now you can't say anymore that we're from different worlds. But you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to sacrifice yourself for me. I didn't sacrifice myself for you. I freed myself for you, for us." Emily approached, touching his face tenderly. "I spent my whole life being what others expected me to be. The obedient daughter, the submissive fiancée, the well-behaved heiress. For the first time in my life, I did what I wanted to do. I chose my own destiny." Marcus pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a desperate passion. "You're crazy, completely crazy. Crazy about you." They made love that night with an intensity they had never experienced before. It wasn't just desire, it was celebration, it was liberation. It was the union of two souls that were finally free to meet. Marcus took her as if he wanted to engrave every moment in his memory, and Emily surrendered as if it were the first time. But even in the euphoria of the reunion, both knew the problems were just beginning. In the morning, they woke up to violent knocks on the door. It was two men in suits, federal police investigators, who had come to summon Emily to testify about the allegations against her father. "Ms. Emily Richardson?" one of them asked when she opened the door. "We need you to come with us to give a statement." Emily dressed quickly and followed the investigators, leaving Marcus at the hotel. The testimony lasted hours, and she repeated everything she had told the journalist, providing precise details about the irregularities at the ranch. When she left the police station, she found a crowd of reporters waiting for her. "Emily, do you regret denouncing your father?" "Emily, is it true that you renounced your inheritance?" "Emily, did you really get involved with an ex-convict?" She stopped in front of the cameras, took a deep breath, and replied, "I don't regret anything. I did what was right, and I would do it all again if necessary. As for my relationship with Marcus, yes, I love him, and I'm not ashamed of it. He is a man of integrity, intelligent and brave, and I'm proud to stand by his side." The questions continued, but Emily didn't answer anything more. She returned to the hotel determined to start a new life, but found Marcus packing his bags. "What are you doing?" "I'm leaving, Emily. I'm going to Houston. I have a cousin there who can get me work." "But what about us?" "There is no us, not after what you did." Marcus couldn't look at her. "You think I'm going to accept that you destroy your life because of me? That I'm going to let you lower yourself to my level? I didn't lower myself. I freed myself. You condemned yourself, and I won't be responsible for that." He closed his suitcase and headed for the door. "Forget I exist, Emily. Go back to your family. Ask your father for forgiveness. Marry who he chose. There's still time to fix everything." "There's no time for anything, and I don't want to fix it. I want to be with you." But Marcus had already left, leaving Emily alone in the hotel room, with her heart shattered and the certainty that even after everything she had done, she still hadn't managed to prove her love. The next morning, Emily discovered that the consequences of her actions were just beginning. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, the curious, distant relatives wanting to know what had happened. But the most unexpected call came from an unlikely source. Bradley Thompson, the man she was supposed to marry. "Emily, we need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about, Bradley. The engagement is off." "It's not. In fact, it's more necessary than ever. Come meet me at the Intercity Hotel restaurant. We have a proposal for you." Curiosity was stronger than revulsion. Emily got ready and went to the meeting, without imagining that she was about to discover secrets that would change everything she thought she knew about her family, about Marcus, and about herself. Emily arrived at the Intercity Hotel restaurant with a tight heart, not knowing what to expect. Bradley Thompson was waiting for her at a discreet table at the back of the room, wearing an impeccable suit that contrasted with the tense expression on his face. When she approached, he stood up politely, but didn't smile. "Thank you for coming," he said, indicating the chair in front of him. "I know you must be surprised by my invitation." "Surprised is an understatement. I thought you'd be the last man in the world who'd want to see me after the scandal." Bradley served wine for both of them before answering. "Actually, it's exactly because of the scandal that I need to talk to you. There are things you don't know, Emily. Things about your family, about Marcus, about everything that happened." "What kind of things?" "First, I want you to know that I never wanted to marry you. This arrangement was our father's idea, not mine." Bradley took a sip of wine as if he needed courage. "I already knew about your involvement with Marcus before all this exploded." Emily felt her blood freeze. "How did you know?" "Because I hired the men who made the blackmail." The silence that followed was deafening. Emily stared at him, trying to process what she had just heard. You did what?" "It wasn't to hurt you. It was to protect you." Bradley leaned forward, his eyes pleading for understanding. "Emily, you don't know who Marcus really is. You don't know why he was imprisoned. You don't know what he did. He was imprisoned for defending his brother from a police assault. I know that." "No, Emily, that's what he told you." "The truth is very different." Bradley took a folder from the floor and placed it on the table. "Marcus was imprisoned for attempted murder. He nearly beat a man to death in a bar fight. The man was in a coma for 3 weeks. Emily felt the world spin. "That's not true. You're lying." "Am I lying?" Bradley opened the folder and showed official documents, court certificates, medical reports, witness testimonies. "He's not the good man you think he is. He's violent, dangerous. That's why I hired those men, to get him away from you before it was too late. Even if that were true, it doesn't give you the right to—" Emily stopped, a terrible realization forming in her mind. "You said you hired the men to protect me, but they blackmailed my father, not Marcus. Because your father refused to listen to us when we tried to warn him about the danger. Richard only cared about his own reputation, not your safety. So we decided to force him to act." "And what did you want him to do?" Bradley hesitated, and Emily saw something dangerous flashing in his eyes. "We wanted him to eliminate Marcus. Definitively." The realization hit Emily like lightning. "You wanted my father to kill Marcus?" Not directly, but there are ways to make a man like him disappear without leaving traces, especially an ex-convict that no one would miss. Emily stood up abruptly, knocking over the chair. "You're a monster. You're all monsters. We're realists." Bradley also stood up, grabbing her arm. "You think a princess like you can simply fall in love with a violent ex-convict and live happily ever after? This isn't a fairy tale, Emily. This is real life. Let go of my arm. I'm not finished yet. Sit down." I said, "Let me go." The pressure of Bradley's fingers increased, and Emily saw for the first time the violence he was capable of demonstrating. "You're going to listen to me, darling. Because I haven't told you the most interesting part of the story yet." "What part?" "The part where your dear Marcus accepted money to stay away from you." Emily felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "Lie. $50,000. That's what he asked to disappear from your life. I personally delivered the money to him last night before he left for Houston." Bradley smiled cruelly. "You thought he ran away because he didn't want to harm you?" "No, darling. He ran away because he got what he wanted. Easy money at the expense of a lovesick rich girl." "You're lying." "Am I?" Bradley took his phone from his pocket and showed her a photo. It was Marcus receiving an envelope of money from the hands of a man Emily didn't recognize. "I like to document my business." Emily looked at the photo in horror, feeling her world collapse for the second time in a few days. Could everything have been a lie? Had Marcus really taken advantage of her from the beginning? "But don't worry," Bradley continued, putting the phone away. "We can still save your reputation. You marry me, as planned. I pretend to forgive your adventure with the worker. You return to respectable society, and everyone forgets this shameful episode. And if I refuse, then you'll continue to be a social pariah who was used by a greedy ex-convict. You no longer have family, no longer have money, no longer have a future. With me, you can still have a decent life." Emily stared at him for a long moment, and Bradley saw what he interpreted as resignation in her eyes. "Will you give me time to think?" "Of course, but don't take too long. My patience has limits." Emily left the restaurant staggering, her mind in turmoil. Could everything have been a lie? Had Marcus really accepted money to stay away from her? The photo seemed real, but something didn't add up. Why would Marcus accept money after rejecting all her offers? Back at the hotel, Emily spent hours looking at the phone, wanting to call Marcus but without the courage to hear the truth. It was then that she received an unexpected visit. Angela Washington, the lawyer who was handling the case against her father. "Emily, I need to speak with you urgently. If it's about the lawsuit, I don't have the head for it right now. It's about Marcus Johnson." Emily stopped, her heart racing. "What about him?" "He didn't go to Houston. He's at the police station, arrested on suspicion of blackmailing Bradley Thompson." "What do you mean?" Angela Washington sat down, her face grave. "Apparently, someone tried to blackmail Bradley with compromising information about illegal businesses of his family. Bradley accused Marcus, and the police arrested him based on a photo that supposedly shows him receiving money. But that's absurd. Marcus would never do such a thing." "I know, and I suspect you know it too. That's why I came here. I need your help to prove his innocence." Emily felt the pieces of the puzzle fitting together in her mind. The photo Bradley had shown wasn't Marcus receiving blackmail money. It was a trap, a setup to incriminate him and force her to accept the marriage. "Is he okay? Is Marcus okay?" "Physically, yes. But Emily, if we can't prove his innocence, he could get years in prison. And this time, it won't be for defending someone. It will be for a crime he didn't commit. What can I do?" "I need you to tell me everything about your meeting with Bradley today. Every detail, every word." Emily reported the entire conversation and saw the lawyer's eyes light up. "He confessed to having hired the men to blackmail your father. That's enough proof that he's capable of setting up this whole situation. But it's my word against his." "Not necessarily. Do you have a phone with a recorder?" Emily nodded, understanding what Angela Washington was suggesting. "You want me to make him confess? I want you to save the man you love, just as he saved you when you were a child." "What do you mean?" Angela Washington smiled. "You don't know, do you? Marcus didn't tell you why he really protected you in that first fight in the field." "I don't understand." 15 years ago, an 11-year-old girl got lost in the woods during a party at your father's ranch. She fell into a hole, broke her leg, and could have died if a 16-year-old black boy hadn't found her and carried her on his back for 2 miles to the main house. Emily felt the world spin again, but this time in a different way. He saved me when I was a child, and was beaten by the foreman for having dared to touch the boss's daughter, even though he had saved your life. He was fired the next day. Marcus never forgot that episode, just as he never forgot the green-eyed girl he saved. Tears streamed down Emily's face. I remember a boy who found me in the woods. I was so scared, and he told me he would protect me. But I never knew his name. Never. Now you know. And now you know why he protected you in the first fight you witnessed in the field. It wasn't just compassion. It was recognition. Love that spanned 15 years. Emily stood up, wiping away the tears. What do I need to do? You need to make Bradley confess. You need to make him admit that he set all this up. The next morning, Emily called Bradley and arranged to meet at the same restaurant. This time, she was prepared. The phone's recorder was active, and she knew exactly what she needed to do. I thought about your proposal, she said as soon as she sat down. I'm willing to marry you. Bradley smiled triumphantly. I knew you'd be sensible. But I have one condition. I want you to withdraw the accusations against Marcus. Why? He betrayed you, took money to stay away from you. Even so, I don't want him to go to prison. He suffered enough. All right, I can do that. But in exchange, you never mention his name again. You never talk about what happened between you two. I agree, but I need to know. Did you really hire those men to blackmail my father? Bradley leaned forward, lowering his voice. Of course I did. Your father is a stubborn man. He only understands the language of force. And the photo of Marcus receiving money? Perfect staging, wasn't it? My cousin posed as an intermediary, and we photographed everything. Marcus didn't even know he was being filmed when he went to explain that he didn't want the money. Emily felt her heart race. He refused the money? He did. Said he didn't want anything that came from me. Proud man, I must admit. Too bad the photo doesn't show the part where he returned the envelope. So he never accepted being paid to stay away from me? No. In fact, he was furious when he found out you had sued your father. Said he would never allow you to destroy yourself because of him. Bradley laughed, not realizing he was incriminating himself. Romantic, isn't it? Too bad romance doesn't pay the bills. Emily mentally turned off the recorder, having obtained everything she needed. May I use the restroom? Of course, but don't take long. We have a lot to plan. Emily stood up, but instead of going to the bathroom, she walked straight to the exit. Bradley followed her, confused. Emily, where are you going? To the police station. To deliver this. She showed the phone with the recording. Thank you for confessing everything. It will make the police's job much easier. Bradley's face transformed into a mask of fury. You bitch, you tricked me. I learned from the best. He advanced toward her, but Emily was already running to the street, shouting for help. Several passers-by turned around and Bradley had no choice but to stop. This isn't over, he shouted. You'll regret this. I already regret it. I regret having wasted so much time before fighting for the man I love. At the police station, Emily handed over the recording and gave her statement. Within hours, Bradley was arrested and Marcus was released. But when she finally could see him, he looked like a defeated man. Why did you do this? He asked, leaving the cell. Why didn't you give up on me? Because you saved my life twice. The first time when I was a child in the woods. The second when you taught me that love is worth more than money, than social position, than anything. Marcus stared at her, surprised. You remember? Now I remember. And now I understand why you always protected me, why you always cared about me. Emily, No, let me speak first. She approached, touching his face. I love you. I don't love your financial situation. I don't love your social position. I don't love your past. I love you. The man who saved a frightened child, who defended his brother from an injustice, who sacrificed himself to protect me. That man I love. But we have no future, Emily. I have nothing to offer you. Yes, you do. You have the most important thing, your love, and I have mine. That's all we need. Marcus kissed her with all the pent-up passion of months of separation. Are you sure? Because if we stay together, it's going to be difficult. Very difficult. I know. But now it's the two of us against the world, and I like those odds. 6 months later, Emily and Marcus were married in a simple ceremony in a small country church. She wore a simple white dress, he a borrowed suit. There were no famous guests, no luxurious party, no society photographers, just the two of them, the priest, and a few friends they had made during the legal battle. Richard Richardson was in jail, awaiting trial. Bradley Thompson had been convicted of racketeering and blackmail. Emily had really lost everything she materially possessed, but had gained something much more precious: the freedom to be herself. They moved to a small town in rural Georgia, where Marcus got a job as an agricultural engineer at a rural cooperative. Emily set up a small social project to teach rural workers to read. They didn't have much money, but they had each other. At night, when they lay down in the simple bed of the rented house, Emily knew she had made the right choice. In Marcus's arms, she had found not just love, but herself, and discovered that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what really matters. "No regrets?" Marcus asked on one of those nights, caressing her hair. "Never," she replied, kissing his chest. "I love you. I love you too. Forever." Outside, the rain fell gently on the countryside, and Emily smiled, knowing she had found her place in the world, beside the man who loved her not for what she had, but for who she was, and that was more than enough.